Here's an interview from one of our past shows on Rock and Metal Revival. If you're interested in hearing full shows, go to our Facebook page and check out our list of affiliates for times and places where you can hear Rock and Metal Revival. Right there is brand new music from Todd-Michael-Hall. The song is called Overdrive, and it's from his new album, Sonic Healing, and we want to welcome to Rock and Metal Revival Todd-Michael-Hall. Welcome to the show, Todd.
Hey, thank you, Greg. Thank you for having me on the show.
It's great having you here. I want to tell you, from the first time I heard this, I'm really, really digging your voice. But actually, I'm a fan of the voice too, and that's actually where I first found out about you. But tell our listeners a little bit about yourself, for those that don't know.
Wow, that's interesting. But thank you. I've actually been singing for a long time. I first played out with a band in 1984 when I was 15 years old. My older brother had a band, and we ended up recording and releasing an album independently in 1988 with a band called Harlot. And did some things for a while. I actually took a break, by the mid-'90s, and then got started back up in the 2000s. I got into a band called Jack Starr's Burning Star. I've done 3 albums with them. I was in a band called Reverence, and then I also am still in a band called Riot V, which is kind of the current incarnation of the Riot that's been around since the late 70s, actually. So, and that's my main shtick. So I kind of have, I've been at it for a while, I guess you'd say.
Oh, I've been a big fan of the band Riot for a long time. That's very cool to find that out. I know that from the first time that I actually saw you and heard your voice on TV, I can tell you've got a deep love for that classic rock sound. I mean, I hear... something that we need to come back in radio and in rock. You know what I mean? It's kind of a lost art, and I'm really hearing it on this album. I know I'm in my mid-50s, and this album is right up my alley.
Oh, well, thank you very much. Yeah, I'll be 52 later this year, so we're birds of a feather, I guess. And for me, what was interesting is when I was quite young and getting impressionable in music, that was in the 70s and getting up to the 80s, and that's when a lot of that classic rock, even Foreigner and all that, like that was funny. When I was on The Voice and I sang Foreigner, Blake's like, yeah, hair metal and all that. It's like, well, I mean, I love hair metal, and that really was something that influenced me a lot in the 80s, but Foreigner's not hair metal. I mean, come on,
No way.
So, but so I have that, and a lot of my career then, and then obviously when the 80s metal started going, that influenced me further, because what's interesting is if you look at bands like Boston, REO Speedwagon, Styx, and all that. I mean, Rush and Foreign and all that. Mm-hmm. There was all kinds of great vocalists, and then as the '80s came around, you had Queensryche and Ronnie James Dio and Bruce Dickinson and all the great singers from the metal era too. It was kind of the heyday for singers and big ranges. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it was. It was very, very, very operatic when you got into the '80s, I thought.
Yeah, definitely. In a lot of, Jeff Tate, he made a lot of, he influenced a lot of people. So there was definitely an aspect of that came in. But the funny thing is, like I said, if you go back and you listen to people like Brad Delp, I mean, who from Boston, I mean, a lot of people, it's like, I don't want to say they didn't know his name, but he's kind of almost like one of the most underrated singers you'd ever think of, because not a lot of people ran around talking about his name, and you didn't see cover tune bands playing it all the time and all that. And that's mainly because it's really hard to sing, But you take a singer like that, and he was already, had the big range. And I mean, obviously, there's been great singers, Robert Plant from Led Zeppelin and stuff like that. But I don't know, there was just, I kind of call it the golden era. And in a way, for this album, what I was really shooting for too was really that golden era of, just the good time rock. It was all over the radio, and it was just positive energy, and it was just like put everybody in a great mood. Everybody wanted to go see the live show, and shows were cheap, and all that. I don't know. That's really what I was shooting for this album. I mean, I love metal. I'm in Riot V, and we tend to be more power metal based.
Uh-huh.
But for my solo album, I wanted to do something different. I didn't want to put out another metal album. I've done like 7 of them in the last decade or so. So I was in the mood for something different, and that's where I came up with this idea.
Well, you're right. There were a lot of faceless singers, lead singers who were great singers back in the 70s, and everybody got glammed. I saw when Blake yelled, "Oh, that's hair metal." No, Blake, that's not hair metal. To me, hair metal was Poison and Skid Row and that kind of thing. But what I hear is a real positive type music from you. And the thing that kind of took me off guard a little bit is I've been a big Metal Church fan for a long time. And when I found out that you were working with Kurt Vanderhoof on this, I'm like, oh, okay, so this is going to be a little heavier than what I saw from you on The Voice. And then when I heard the album, I was really pleasantly surprised. I mean, did you have most of the influence on this album, or did you and Kurt work side by side?
Well, what was interesting is I knew Joe from Rat Pack Records, and so I had contact. We had talked about doing a solo album a while ago. He was kind of leaning toward me doing something metal, and I wanted to do something old school. And then, a couple of years went by or so, and then I got on The Voice, and I called him back. I said, I'm telling you, I want to do something old school. And he's like, all right. I'm like, can you hook me up with someone? I have like 25 of my own songs. Can you hook me up with someone that'll help me make them a little more hard rock? Because I write with an acoustic, so things tend to come out a little singer-songwriter, and a little more pop. And he's like, well, I think I got a guy. And he came back and said, look, I talked to him. Do you know Kurt Vanderhoof from Metal Church? And I'm like, well, I met him, because Riot opened up for them in Switzerland back in 2016, 17, something like that. And but I didn't know him, you know what I mean? I just had chatted with him, and he hooked the two of us up, and we had an initial Zoom call where, because he said, look, Kurt loves classic rock, old school rock stuff, and so we had an opening Zoom call back in, I don't know, it was end of February, beginning of March probably, and it was just amazing, and we just really bonded over, started talking about the things we wanted to do, and I think we were both it was amazing how much we gelled and how much we were on the same page. And then he's such an amazing writer. He listened to my stuff. He's like, look, you got some great ideas, but let me just get myself in the mood and start making stuff, and then we'll see what flows, and then we'll come back around to your stuff. But we actually never came back around to my stuff because he wrote like he was amazing. He wrote like music for 18 songs in like 21 days. It was like I've never really experienced anything like that. It was like whoa. And then like we were kind of going back and forth because it was during the COVID shutdown actually from my work, and so I was just kind of almost full time, if you will, listening to songs and writing and recording demo vocals. And over that 4-week period, I managed to put lyrics for 16 of the 18 songs, lyrics and vocal melodies, and we were just kind of, it was amazingly productive period. And so, yeah, I think we both, we talked about what we were hoping to achieve, and I think we gelled on that, and then just executed. It was, I don't know, it's magical. I sure hope it happens for the second album because it was real wonderful for the first album.
Well, I was going to ask you about that. I mean, this has had to be a tough time getting ready to put out an album with a pandemic where you weren't supposed to be in the same room together, and it was tough on a lot of artists. I know we speak to a lot of them on the show, and they're like, I've got 35 or I've got 100 songs written. Is that one of those things where through this time when you were off that you were going, okay, now I've got this first album coming out and I've already got the second album written?
Yeah, no, we don't, because we stuck with the first, and then we took a break from it, because what we did is we hammered down, and we were like, well, let's just go ahead and hammer down and finish recording this and everything. So we've actually had the final mix of the album since in latter part of June or something, I think, but it just took forever to put all the promo material together, because trying to get videos done during COVID and all that was just a real pain. But I sometimes you do that. I mean, I've kind of had a little bit of that experience on my own, where I've just had a spurt where I've written a lot of songs. But what's interesting is if you write like extra, and it doesn't always happen, but if you write like extra songs, say I'll use them for the next album, a lot of times when you come around, you're just in a slightly different place, and they don't necessarily fit. They don't sound like they fit with the set anymore. So I don't know how easy that is to do. But for me, I think everyone's maybe got a different approach. I think for me, I have a full-time job. I run a manufacturing company for a living. So I mean, for me, the shutdown was kind of like a good thing in a way, because it forced some stillness. You know what I mean? If you want to be creative, you need some space. You got to be able to breathe and have some stillness to be able to let stuff come out. And so in that regard, it kind of helped me. I think I resisted the temptation though to be gloomy, because I'm telling you, it's this COVID thing. It's been enough to cause most people to get a little depressed, I think. And I tried to resist that. I really wanted to have a total positive vibe on it, and that's what we went for.
I've made comments numerous times on this show about a lot of musicians got a lot of time to be a creative. I hope they're not all pissed off. Because I don't want 2 years of angry music coming out. And that's what I really love about your album. It's really positive.
Yeah, yeah. I think first of all, it hits people differently. Too, I think for some people, it's almost like it stopped them from wanting to create. So some people get really creative, and others didn't. Get creative, and when I write, it's kind of like I'm a product of my environment. So it's not like I love solemn music, and I love that kind of stuff too. So it's not like I never had that thought come to mind. I think it's just that, especially with the music that Kurt was bringing back to me, and my attitude and stuff at the time. I wanted to have a positive vibe. I feel like at this point in my life, I just want to bring joy into people's lives, and I want to, try to touch people. To me, music has been such a companion for me throughout the years, and that's kind of my fantasy as a writer and as a singer, is to feel like I could kind of be that for other people too.
That's awesome. I guess my next question is the inevitable question. Is there a solo band? Is there thoughts of getting out playing some gigs, or is your touring pretty much just to Riot?
It is tough for me because, it's hard to get a lot of work. It's hard to work and work in the touring and stuff too. And usually when Riot's busy, we're touring a good 6 to 8 weeks a year, not necessarily all at the same time. But that being said, I don't know, both Kurt and I really loved the way the album turned out, and this is the kind of music that just seems like it wants to be played live really bad, and so I think we both definitely would like to get out, and it really just comes down to, COVID and openings and whether or not, there's enough demand for us to get out there and try to make it happen. I know Kurt has some ideas in mind for some musicians, but right now we're not really officially a band, so to speak, I guess.
Yeah, I was going to say, because I've listened through this album probably 6 or 7 times in the last 5 days, and all I can think of to myself is, man, I'd like to see this. I'd like to hear this live. I'd like to get the feel of what this is like live, because it has that, I don't want to say arena rock feel to it, but it has a feel of an album of songs that want to jump off the stage. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think so. And I think what we went for too is, and because I'm a fan of like lots of backup vocals and all that kind of stuff. But what we did on this one is we went for more of a stripped down approach. So it pretty much is just a band. There wasn't any keyboards on it. I did do like 2-part harmonies in a lot of places, but we didn't always use them. And we kind of made it more like, I don't know, maybe not all Foreigner songs, but like an album where it's like pretty much the singer's out the forefront. Anything backup vocal wise, just a little support. So they're there, but they're not screaming at you. And so I think in that regard, yeah, I think it's something where when you hear it live, it's going to sound a lot like the album. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Well, I'm looking forward to hearing what else you have. I love this album. I hope to see you out live. Where's the best place, Todd, for people to keep up to date with what's going on with you? And, hey, maybe you do decide to play a few gigs. Where are they going to find that information out at?
Probably the best thing would be to follow me either on Instagram or on Facebook. Those are the places where, nowadays where you tend to post things. Obviously, I have my own webpage where, Todd-Michael-Hall.com, where they can go, and it would give you links to YouTube and Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and stuff like that. So that's probably the easiest thing. Usually when you're going to play shows, you do little shout-outs on social media so people hear about it.
Well, that's awesome. Now, I know I love Joe at Rat Pack, and he always does such great bundles and packaging. Does he have that with your album too?
Yeah, he sure does, man. There's a lot of really neat package. He actually sent me one of the Ultimate Fan bundles, which kind of sounds funny to send it to the artist, but man, he just goes the extra mile with the stickers and the pics and the signed this and that, and he even printed up cassette versions of the album and everything. So it's just pretty amazing. It's real fun to see, and experience. He's very different in the way he goes things. He's very focused on physical product too, whereas a lot of record labels have kind of abandoned that almost and just really focus on the digital. So, and when you're an old school guy like me, you kind of like to have a CD in your hand or something, or even better yet, a vinyl.
Oh yeah. Oh man. Well, I tell you what, it has been a pleasure having you on Rock and Metal Revival today. We're going to play another cut off the album. It is the title track from the album called Sonic Healing. Is there anything special you might want to tell us about this song, Todd?
This was one of those ones where when I first heard the music to it, it's a little, I guess you'd call it subdued, I guess you'd say, on the verses, and then all of a sudden the chorus just jumps out at you, and it just kind of made me think about life in general, how, in general, things can be kind of, you're facing little battles, you might be down a little bit, but then all of a sudden you can have that spurt of energy, and that music can really give that to you, and that's really kind of what the concept of the song's all about. I don't know, Sonic Healing was a lyric that I've had in there, and ended up becoming the title of the song because it seems so appropriate. But really, it's about how music can give you energy and just help you feel alive again.
Outstanding. Well, Todd, it has been a pleasure to talk to you today on Rock and Metal Revival, and we wish you nothing but the best, and you're always welcome to come back here.
Well, thank you very much, Greg. I look forward to returning.